When's the last time you felt betrayed, and just what did you do about it? You know how educated women of color are all too often socially considered to be the least likely to have a healthy, sustainable romantic partnership? Well, I am here to make sure that we attract our equal and create the loving relationship that is our birthright. Hey, sweet babies, I'm Candice, and let me tell you, I have been where you are. For years, I was unclear about my love life and trying to achieve society's idea of a romantic relationship. My families, the churches, the millions of romance novels that I read throughout high school, none of which got me anywhere but unhappy with my love life. So basically, it took abuse, grief, and homelessness for me to learn how to let go of control and be guided to transform my life and specifically my love life. I broke free from all of those struggles, those struggle-love cycles, and created a love life that I love, that loves me back. And now I'm here to guide you to do the same. So listen, every week, I want you to join me on this journey from feeling disappointed in your relationship history to madly in love, from broken and guarded to whole and happy. And I'm here every week, sometimes like today with an amazing guest. I'm so excited about this guest to introduce you to today. But I don't want you to just watch. I want you to listen, comment, engage, and be a part of this conversation. I want you to get in on this with us. We talk a lot here, so you got to get in where you fit in, but we're going to be looking for your comments and interacting. And if you're watching later, comment down below because we will definitely respond. We want to have us all in this healing conversation. So my special guest today, who I'm so excited about, first of all, she is like a warrior woman. Like she was like, I can come on the show and I turn this around really fast compared to normal. And she was game. And I love that about her. She's beautiful. She's like Beyonce beautiful. Her name's Kisha Benjamin. And she is a dynamic and spirited reset life coach, speaker, and an author. She is the owner and operator of Hit the Reset LLC. And she just released her debut book titled Surviving Betrayal Trauma: How to Hit the Reset and Take Your Power Back. She's also a host on the YouTube podcast, Bringing On Candid Convos, where they discuss relationships, trending topics, and personal development from a grown woman's perspective, honey. We grown in this conversation. Her narrative is one of resilience, self-discovery, and unconditional self-love. You guys know how much I love unconditional self-love. We talk about that as well, which is why I feel so aligned with this guest. And having weathered heart-wrenching betrayals and staggering losses, she refused to be a victim of her circumstances. And instead, she turned her pain into her driving force and catalyst for growth and change. From surviving betrayal trauma to a thriving beacon of empowerment, Kisha is here to help you hit the reset in your life on your journey to self-discovery, self-awareness, unstoppable self-worth, profound healing, and unwavering personal power. So let me bring on Kisha, my sister, myself. Hello, my love. Let me bring you up. Tech is checking. Let's see. Yep, there you go.
Hello there.
Hi, gorgeous. How are you?
I'm doing well. For you to say that I am Beyonce gorgeous. Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'll take it.
That was the first thing that I noticed about you because, you know, I put out a post. I was like, I need guests or whatever. And then I saw your I was like, wait a second. Hold up. And then I saw that you wrote a book. I was like, okay, she's got to be on the show. Gorgeous, prolific, you know, with something amazing to say. So, you know, yeah. Do you want to say hello to the people?
I do. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. This is an incredible opportunity, and I am the owner and operator of Hit the Reset LLC.com. So in my career life, I work for a large finance firm that I've been with for almost 10 years. And then, of course, on my other side of my professional life, like you said, I'm a reset and I'm a life coach, and I'm a speaker, and I'm also an author. And for me, I am a huge advocate for women of color, but specifically for Black women.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, you know, we face a lot of struggle in our life, a lot of struggle love. A lot of times we are at the bottom of the bottom, but I am advocating for us to rise to the top. And that starts with that unconditional self-love, right? Knowing what our worth is, our value, all of
Yes.
those good things to position us in our lives where, you know, it's either do or don't. Right.
Yeah.
To me, that's how I feel about it. It's a do or don't.
Absolutely.
And so my mother used to tell me, anytime you have doubt, that means don't.
Mm.
Right. Anytime
Yeah.
there's doubt, there's don't.
Yeah.
So I want us all to get into a position where there is no doubt. We know who we are,
Yeah.
and we're going to continue to persevere and move forward. So
Yeah.
that's just a little bit about who I am.
I love it. And so you said something, and we were talking about it the other day, making the distinction between being Black women and women of color, right?
Yes.
Speaking
Yes.
of there being any doubt here. So I often market, to women of color because I believe, as Black women and, as being part of the diaspora and then also being women of color, which is a much wider, broader range as we talked about,
Yes.
is that it's important to make that distinction because even though as women of color, we are often very influenced by our culture, we do come as Black women with a completely different set of history and generational traumas and
Absolutely.
all, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this conversation, I believe, is for all of us, but specifically for us in the
Yes.
sense that there is a completely different set of generational trauma, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
So thank you for making that distinction and having me actually think about it more as I continue to create messaging and things like that.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Already we have a hello from D. Nicole. She says, "Hi, Kisha. I love you." And she put
Hi. I love you too. Thank you.
That's awesome. So, like I said, I'm really excited about this conversation. And I
Yeah.
wanted to say that, and I mentioned it earlier when we were talking in the pre, I didn't have a chance to read the book. The book is entitled Surviving Betrayal Trauma. We turned
Yes.
around so fast, I didn't have a chance to read it. So I'm telling the audience, like, I'm just like you guys. I have the questions. I want to learn. I want to know what Kisha has to say. As soon as I saw the title of the book, I was like ears pricked up because I was like, this is important. And I feel like it needs to be talked about. So my very first question is how are we defining betrayal trauma? Like, what is it?
Sure. So most of us in our life have experienced some type of betrayal, right?
Mhm.
Betrayal trauma is inflicted trauma from somebody that we trust,
Mm.
our loved ones, our family members. It could be our romantic partners, our parents, cousins, sister, brothers, right? But it also extends a little bit further than that to also friendships, right? And even in business, right? There can be betrayal in business as well.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is. It's the inflicted trauma, it's the pain um, from lies, from deceit, from infidelity, mental and emotional violence and abuse. It's
Yeah.
those things that are kind of put on us when we least expect it, right? From somebody that we have loved and somebody that we have trust. And so that is what betrayal trauma is.
Yeah.
And especially too, if you think about it, for people who have also maybe experienced narcissistic abuse
Mm.
as well,
Yeah.
right? Or sexual abuse. It
Yeah.
comes in so many forms of abuse.
Yeah.
But again, it is from somebody that you thought that you could trust.
Yeah, wow.
Mhm.
See, that's interesting that you say that because what initially came up when I was reading the title, I was like, that could apply to so many things. And I went directly
Yes.
back to, I talk a lot about my own history, my own experiences with trauma and things like that. And from a place of, on a healing journey like crazy, right? But I
Yeah.
started to think about that it could even be things I would imagine as, as, and I don't want to say as small, I don't want to diminish it, but like, parents, a lot of times parents,
Oh,
don't know
yes.
how to parent, right? That we don't come on this earth knowing those things. It's like, that you have a child. I think about my relationship with my father, who was a good father in the sense that he provided, but I can remember being a small child and kind of like losing his affection.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously as an adult, I know that that was his own stuff. But as a
Yeah.
child, I think as children, we go through things like that kind of emotional abandonment or
Oh, yes.
when they leave the house completely,
Oh, yes.
right? Like, is that kind of along the lines?
Absolutely. most of us experience betrayal trauma in our childhoods,
Yeah.
right? Like you said, it could be an absent parent, it could be abandonment, it could be neglect,
Yeah.
all of those things. But that is in our childhood is where we learn about relationships. This is where we start to develop our relationship patterns, right? Is what did we see? What did we experience in our childhood? And so, absolutely, to me, that's where it starts because that's what shapes our romantic relationships, how we feel about ourselves, all of those things. So,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Oh,
And
wow.
one thing that I do like to say is that betrayal it's a vicious assault on your emotional well-being.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, like I want people to sit with that for a second. A
Yeah.
vicious assault on your emotional well-being, because that's another thing. I just finished reading Worthy, Jada's book.
Okay.
She talks a lot about how she denied herself, like kind of, ignored her own feelings about things, or I forget exactly how she phrased it, but basically just kind of pretended that things were okay when they weren't okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I always, talk about how that is a very violent way that we can treat ourselves. But
ab-
when we are betrayed, that is a vicious assault on our emotions. And it's much more um I think impacting than if someone slapped us in the face.
because I mean, we get over. You can get over somebody slapping you in the face,
Right?
not get over it, right? Because of course you want to retaliate, but the sting only lasts for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Betrayal is literally the deepest wound and the sharpest cut that
Yeah.
you can experience. I liken betrayal trauma because it comes in so many facets to going to war, right? It's a warfare.
Yeah.
It really is. Or people who have experienced uh, rape,
Yeah.
right? Things of that nature. Something the deepest trauma that you can experience usually has something to do with a betrayal.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing. But just kind of going back to even Jada's book as well, what I've come to learn outside of all of the trauma that others have done to us is the betrayal that we also do to ourselves.
Mm.
Right? The self betrayal is really what keeps us stuck. It keeps us in just a self purgatory almost,
Right.
right? Where we just not living up to our full potential. And we continue to betray ourselves by not using our voice, by allowing people to continue to abuse us, right?
Yeah.
Especially as adult women, I think, and especially as Black women, we are doers. We
Yeah.
always put everybody else before us,
Yeah.
before ourselves, right? Everybody comes before us and we take
Especially
the
if we have
heat and we take the
children.
blunt, and especially if we have children, absolutely. But we do have to learn how to put us first, because if we're not well, then how do we ensure the wellness of our children, our partners, and things of that nature? So I think it's so important that we start with addressing the self-betrayal. How do we address ourselves? How
Yeah.
do we address our own betrayal, and then start to kind of heal the betrayal from our perpetrators and our
Yeah.
abusers.
Now, see, that's interesting because I think, like so many things are cyclical. I think that we learn to do that, and you can tell me what you think about it. I think we learned to do that early on. There's a viral video, and this is what it came up as you were talking. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about 5 years old or something like that. And it's a Black father with his
Mhm.
daughter, and she's maybe about 4 years old, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And he has clearly taken her out of a store, and he has her sitting on top of the car, and she's crying because she threw a tantrum in the store. And he's
Mhm.
basically just telling her about herself and how she needs to get it together. She can't behave like this, but in a very like you're wrong, kind of like a wrong making kind of way. And
Mhm.
it's the internet, so it gets a lot of like amens and yeah, that people need to tell their kids or whatever.
Mhm.
What I
Mhm.
felt when I saw that was a betrayal, like a lack of understanding that at 4 years old, it's age appropriate to be overwhelmed in a store
Yes.
or
Yes.
even behave in a spoiled way at 4 years old and to act out emotionally because I don't have the vocabulary to say what's really going on with me.
Right.
And
Right.
what her father
Right.
was doing, not just, the way that he was punishing her, but also that he was filming it, I felt that that was a betrayal. And I say all of that to say those betrayals that happen when we're very young, it's like the which came first, the chicken or the egg. I think as we grow older, it's almost like we become a space for it, right? Not saying that we're responsible for what anybody else does, but as you know, we
Right.
learn to deny ourselves. So I feel like that little girl in that moment sat there and probably started to say, well, how I feel about this doesn't matter. It gets me in trouble. So I can't express how I feel. Right. And I'm wrong because my dad is mad at me. So my feelings are wrong. And I don't have an outlet for it because here's this person who's the one I trust. And he's telling me I'm wrong. And now I'm in trouble. So I think that's kind of where it begins.
Well, in so many communities, children are seen and not heard, right?
Yeah.
Children really don't have the autonomy for their own selves or their own emotions, right? You're told what to do. You're told
Yeah.
how to feel. You're
Yeah.
told how to think. And so nobody really is ever really paying attention to the emotions of a child.
Yeah.
And I think that that's unfortunate. And that's something that I think so many of us can relate to, right? We're seen and not heard. Go sit down. Go, you're shoved off. Go play. Go do this. Go do that.
Right.
If you're crying, stop crying. What are you crying for? You want me to give you something to cry about?
Right. Give you something to cry. Like who hasn't heard that?
Right. Shut
Yeah.
up. All of those things that just dismiss how you feel. And then, like you said, it's a learned pattern, right?
Yeah.
Now we think that, well, it doesn't matter how I feel and anybody can treat me any old kind of way. And I just have to suck it up and absorb it and stop crying. And it just makes for so much more abuse. It
Right.
really does, because then
Yeah.
you don't speak up. And there's a lot of predators out there that are looking for children
Yeah.
that do not have the space to be able to speak up, the safe space to be able to express their emotions, right?
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of them are in our own families,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
No, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think that denial, and here's the thing too, because I'm very careful, especially since I'm not a biological parent. I'm very careful not to blame parents, and especially because I feel like we're at a time of cycle breaking right now. So I think
Yes.
that especially our generation of parents,
Yeah.
I honestly don't think they knew better in a lot of, and I'm generalizing. Because their desires and needs were denied as well, right?
Absolutely.
Like their depression era, ones born in the depression and
Yeah.
up to the 70s. It's like, you don't have feelings. Like get over it. There's more important things than how you feel about things.
Yeah.
And then you go back even more generations. It's like, when we were treated like chattel, no one was allowed
Mm,
to feel anything.
mm,
Right?
mm. It's the generational curse that
Yeah.
keeps giving and giving and giving
Right.
until
Right.
somebody is brave enough to say it stops here.
It stops here. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's sort of the onus of our generation. Like we are as Gen Xers, I think, we're the first in this conversation of therapy. I feel like this is where the cycle needs to break. Like we get to say, okay, look, when we were kids, it was like get out the house until the lights go out or
Yeah.
come on or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
smoking in the car, like no seatbelt, whatever. And I think we're that generation that's here to begin to break that cycle and get to that
Absolutely.
understanding that, yeah, you create someone who I don't like to use the word victim, but someone who's a space for the experience of abuse when you tell your child that your feelings don't matter, when you
Yes.
betray them that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
I, especially I do want to say in the Black community, because this is the community that I know.
Yeah.
It is rampant, right? And again, it is passed down from generation to generation. But when you look at um, the systemic oppression on top of that, when you look at some of our housing situations and our neighborhoods and all of that stuff that comes with it, it's got like who has room to, like you said, talk about feelings. There's so much more important things going out here. Like, are we going to eat tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That a lot of parents just aren't focused on that part of it. But these are changing times, and the kids that are coming up now, they're not playing with us.
They are not playing.
Okay.
I agree with that.
They will tell you how they feel.
Yeah.
I have two, right? I have a son that graduated from Morgan State University. I have a daughter who's going to Coppin State University right now. And trust me, if something needs to be said,
they say it.
They're gonna let you know. Oh yeah.
That's how my partner's daughter, she's very like, I think she just turned 21, and she's just so in touch with like her experience. And I'm like, if I were like that at 21, I feel like I'd be ruling the world by now. And I feel like she will rule the world one day. But you're right. Like this generation, luckily, in so many ways, they are so in touch with their field of emotion.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so important. I was just listening to Bell Hooks this morning, and she was talking about, I can't remember the title of the book, but it's where she talks about the male experience and us being out of touch with our emotions, and because of the patriarchy, the domination, the control that has us out of touch with our emotions, right? And just being in this conversation and doing this work, like it's just so important that people understand that it's the apex of everything.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. It really is. I mean, for centuries, right? I mean, look, especially as women, right? Because this is a women's conversation.
Yeah.
We were not allowed to have a voice.
Yeah.
I mean, women weren't even allowed to have bank accounts and things of that nature until the 70s, right? It was, and we had to attach ourselves to our counterparts just as a means of survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now in the day and age that we are right now, and especially with all of these different platforms and YouTube and TikTok and all of these, like, people are speaking up, all of the podcasts that are out here now, we have a voice. And I think it's so important for women of color, but specifically Black women, to speak up and talk about our experiences so that others know that they're not alone in the struggle, that somebody else has experienced the same thing that they have. And then how do we help each other through it?
Like the healing power of community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk to me about, and I don't know if you mentioned it in the book or not, about recognizing if you're experiencing behavioral trauma.
Yes. It is in the book. There are symptoms that come along with betrayal trauma. So first, one of the symptoms are withdrawal, right? You find that, again, your voice has been taken, right? You don't know what to say. You don't know how to express the emotion. You're hypervigilant, right? When you find yourself not knowing if you're coming or going, because of course we know that we've been betrayed. So we know what betrayal feels like if somebody has done something to us, but it's the symptoms that are attached to that. When I went through my betrayal trauma, I developed complex post-stress disorder, right? It's a CPTSD. And so that's what comes along with stomach ulcers. You can't sleep, nightmares. I mean, when I tell you, it's a vicious attack on your well-being. And the attack is so vicious that sometimes it can turn cellular, like it's embedded within you. And so if you're experiencing any of those because of betrayal, you know that you are in a trauma. Right? Not being able to sleep, not being able to eat. Sometimes you're overeating, sometimes you're undereating. Fog, right? You can't think straight half the time. But we still have to exist. We still have to find our way through the world. And I do say that if you know that you've been betrayed and you are experiencing these, to definitely seek therapy, a counselor, somebody that you can talk to walk you through it, because a lot of times when we're just holding these things in, it'll fester. And it'll get worse and worse and worse if we don't have an outlet or don't know how to kind of find our way through it.
And you mentioned too how it can affect the body, because you mentioned having things like that. I mean, the festering can become major diseases and things like that, right?
Absolutely. So just even a part of, even again, just going back to my own story. So not only did I develop CPTSD, I also had a TIA, a mini stroke, in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Because of the stress that was on my body.
Yeah.
And then from that, I also developed a neurologic condition from betrayal. So people think that, and the people that are committing the betrayal, like they're just going about life like, hey,
right.
like it's nothing. Meanwhile, we're dying on the inside, and it
Yeah.
really affects us. Like I said, it's cellular, it's neurological, it's the stress on your body. It is really, really a painful experience to have to go through.
And I think too, and this is like as you're talking about it, it's coming up for me because I'm definitely someone who experiences trauma and pain somatically. Like I'm
Yeah,
someone who, the body will shut down similar to you, like I'll get stomach issues, things like that, hair loss, like it shows
hair
up,
loss. Oh
right?
yeah,
I go back to like, I was in a very abusive relationship about a decade ago and, how my body sort of reacted to that. And I think for people who are out there listening, sometimes, because you mentioned when you know you've been betrayed and you have resulting physical things, then you can know to go see the clinician. But I think sometimes you don't even know it. And it goes back to our denial of self, right? Like sometimes we're just so
hmm
used to what's modeled for us, these dysfunctional relationships and things like that, and thinking that that's okay, that
yeah,
someone can be treating us very badly. And that's what happened for me in the first couple of years of that abusive relationship. I was in denial that I was being betrayed. I was in denial thinking that, well, this is how it goes, this is how relationships are. And because I often am in the conversation around inspiring people to find love, I'm also very careful about, not tapping into being in love with love and just trying to hold on to somebody for love's sake, or trying to force yourself into something where you are, feeling like things are going wrong, and the things that go wrong in our body are very
yeah.
indicative that if you don't have proof that somebody that you're with is doing things that are, dysfunctional for you, your body will tell you. Right, if you're unaware of it. Do you agree
Your
with
body
me?
will tell you before your mind does. Yeah, your body
Right.
will tell you before your brain does. Right.
Yeah.
So again, it's the hypervigilance. If you find that you're always suspicious,
Mm.
right? Like
Mhm.
even in situations with romantic relationships, and you might not have proof, but you know it. Women,
Yeah.
we have discernment, right?
Right.
We have a knowing when something is
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
We know. You don't have to tell
Intuition.
me anything. I can feel it. And so I
Yeah.
think, but we need to pay attention more to what our gut is telling us, right? Because if
Yeah.
something is wrong, I don't, if somebody yells fire, do you need to see the fire before you get out of there?
Right.
Right? If you hear gunshots, do you need to
Numbers.
see the shooter before
Right.
you're ducking?
Yeah.
No, right? So we have to pay attention to the innate signs, right, as women that we already have. Like we just have a knowing.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, through childhood, we're taught to ignore those. We're taught
Right.
to ignore our feelings and ignore our intuition and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
I'm like, as a grown woman, I pay absolute attention to it, um,
Yeah.
because I know that that is God's way of telling me I'm in danger. We have a
Yeah.
flight or flight, in our system for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It's embedded in us. We know when something isn't right.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
to me, that's what I say. Just trust yourself, because before you trust anybody else, you have to have trust for yourself. And I think
Yeah.
that that's so important. So I trust me before I trust anybody else.
Yes.
And I might be wrong in the moment. I could be, but I'm always going to pay attention to that feeling. I'm always going to pay attention to the voice that's in my head that's telling me something's not right here. So I will
Yeah.
back myself out of it, and then I can go and address it at a later time. Like, hey, listen, something isn't right here. Let's discuss this. What's going on? And I
Yeah.
think, like I said, if
So
we pay more attention to those feelings that come up, we will be so much better off.
yeah. So paying attention to what's going on with your body, paying attention to those feelings that are coming up and listening to your intuition, like good, clear ways of being able to tell if you're experiencing
Yes.
betrayal, right? If you're in that moment and you're not,
Yeah.
and you're unsure of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think too, it's like
Yeah.
those who
Well,
are.
also too, depression. Are you depressed more?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but even being depressed, right? Like that's a form of betrayal. Anxiety is like,
yeah,
because if you're in situations that is bringing that on, if that's a form of betrayal. in your
Mm.
household, at your job? Are you not wanting to go to work because somebody said something and you might not know exactly what was done, but you can see the outcome of what's happening, right? And to me, it's like, let's again, it's about paying attention. It's about having that discernment. It's about having that knowing and paying attention to that, to those feelings. And so, even a lot of times too, are you carrying around guilt and shame as
Yeah.
well? Because if you're feeling
Mm.
guilty about something and it's something that you didn't cause within yourself, right? You know, you didn't do anything wrong, but some kind of way somebody's making you feel guilty of something,
Yeah.
and making you feel ashamed, then to me, pay attention
Yeah.
to those things, right? Because usually it's somebody that's betraying you if they have not already done it, or they're about to
Yeah.
betray you. It goes along with the gaslight, right? A lot of us know gaslighting now. If somebody's trying to make you feel like what you're saying isn't making sense and you're overreacting, or you're, no. So I say that. And anytime somebody is lying to you, anytime somebody is gaslighting you, it doesn't have to be a big betrayal. Anytime somebody is lying to you, that's betrayal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny how the
That's betrayal.
betrayers, when they are guilty, can make you feel so guilty. That's something like I in hindsight that I really felt. I was like,
Yeah.
when I was in that relationship, there were so many times I felt guilty. And then I found out later that I was feeling guilty because what a betrayer will do is project that guilt onto you because they're guilty.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you're with someone who doesn't trust that, if you're out by yourself, that you're not flirting with other people, or thinks that if we're out together, you're giving other people too much attention, or that you might be cheating, or they're accusing
Hmm.
you, where were you?
Hmm.
As soon as someone gets like that, where they're
Yes.
hyper suspicious and you're like, I'm not even doing anything. I feel like that's a really good indication that you're dealing with some betrayal, whether they've actually done it yet or not,
Absolutely.
right? They're
Yeah,
so good. It's
absolutely.
like,
Because they're putting you in a position where you have to defend yourself. They're putting you in a
yes,
position to make you feel like you're doing something wrong, right? It's
yeah,
like, wait a minute. And it's a control tactic. Right. So if
yeah,
to me, anybody who's trying to control me, you're trying to betray me in some kind of way. Because why do you need to do that? Why do you need
exactly.
to make me feel so low about myself so that you have the upper hand? To me,
Yeah,
again, that's another form of betrayal. So betrayal it's not just infidelity, right?
yeah,
It's not just somebody doing something physically to harm you. It's getting in your mind,
yeah.
right?
Or even lying to you,
It's
right?
trying to make you doubt yourself, trying to
Yeah,
lying. Yes, absolutely. Lying is one of the biggest forms of betrayal, right? Because first of all, so many people do it, and some people
yeah,
do it even not even thinking about that. They're not
yeah,
even thinking that they're doing it. But if it's affecting you and it's harming you, it's betrayal. It's betrayal.
yeah. Absolutely. Wow. So, okay, I've recognized that there's been a betrayal. I'm having, the symptoms and the indications. My gut, is flipping. I'm feeling like it's. So, what is your suggestion around like the aftermath, or even just that when you're in that discovery
Yeah.
phase of it, where you're like, this is what's happening right now, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. 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 To me, I think the first part is admitting it. Right?
Mm,
Is you have to admit it to yourself. Like, okay, this is what's really happening. It's the acknowledgement of it.
mm,
Because, like you said, a lot of times we're in denial of it. So
yeah.
acknowledge it. But once you acknowledge it, I think it's important to just pause for a minute, right? Don't react to the betrayal. And I've learned this firsthand because, of course, somebody's betraying you. The old Keisha, I'm ready to fight, right? I'm
Right.
ready to like, wait a
Blow
minute here.
it up.
I'm
Right.
ready to blow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about to be blowed up in here.
Right.
But there's ways to handle it. And my thing is just kind of, like I said, acknowledge it, but then step back from it for a minute, right?
Mm,
Give yourself some grace.
yeah,
Because I think a lot of times too, when we find out about a betrayal, we start to beat ourselves up,
yeah,
right? So we have to be kind to ourselves, give ourselves some grace, step back from it for a moment. And even though we might not be able to physically remove ourselves from a situation, we can kind of just in our mind, just kind of step back and look at the big picture. So
yeah,
those are some of the things that I would first say, that if you know, or you're just finding out about it, don't deny it,
yeah,
acknowledge it, give yourself a moment to process it, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, treat yourself with grace.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes I would say, should we confront those that betray us? I think that depends on the circumstance,
Yeah.
um, because sometimes it can be unsafe
Yeah.
to confront a betrayer. But if you are in a position where you feel like, okay, I need to address this, then do so. Like I said, because that's where the pause comes in. You don't want to react to it. You want to be able to respond to it.
Mm. Yes.
And I think that's the most important, right? Let the person know like what you're doing is hurting me and it's harming me. And
Yeah.
I can no longer stay in this situation. Or if it's in a relationship and it's a relationship that you are not yet ready to leave, it's we need some help. We
Yeah.
need some counseling. So those would be like some of the top ways to just kind of step back
Hey
from it.
sis, I know you. You want to attract a partner who genuinely loves you as a woman. You want to break generational cycles and experience the fulfilling romantic relationships that your mother and maybe even your grandmother didn't have. You want to learn how to release the pattern of navigating your love life through past hurts, trauma, and abandonment issues. So I've made this easy to consume, effective digital course just for you. It's called A Love Life That Loves You Back. I'm Candice Harper, a relationship coach and hypnotherapist, and I would love to help you create that love life. Just go to bit.ly/loving relationships for WOC. Can't wait to see you
Self-care
there.
is really important too,
Mm.
right? Is just making sure that you are okay
Yeah.
mentally, physically, emotionally. That's okay. But the biggest one for me is you have to have a spiritual connection.
Yes. Which is like the biggest part of self-care, right? Like
That is
that's
the biggest part of self-care.
also too, I want to add to that there's no time limit on that.
Oh, never. No, no, no. No, no, no. Your process is your process. Don't ever allow somebody to tell you that you have to get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? To me, you don't get over it, you get through it.
Yeah.
There's a difference there, right? Getting over it is like you said, oh, we just threw it to the back somewhere and
Right.
we just put it in the back of our mind and oh, I'm just going to keep. No, no, no. We need to get through it. And that means we need to process it. We need to understand how it happened, maybe why it happened, so that we can figure out again, how do we find our way through all of this?
Yeah.
And that to me goes back to having that spiritual connection for me, that because that was really the biggest thing that helped me get through it was my relationship with God. Now, I
Mm.
know everybody is not religious and all of that. And I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirituality here.
Spirituality.
And so, whatever it is that you're connecting to, that higher source, higher than you, if it's spirit, if it's universe, if it's God, get in the moment with it because you're going to need that, right? That's going to be your place of solace. That's going to be your place of comfort, but that's also where you're going to find your inner understanding, right?
Yeah.
Because instead of blaming ourselves, a lot of times when we are betrayed, we start to blame ourselves for
Yes.
what's happened to us. To me, but when you have that spiritual connection, you can kind of place it. To me, I place it at the feet of God, right?
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna give this to you, right? Because you told me if I give this battle is not mine alone.
Yeah.
And being able to have that just kind of made me feel again like I wasn't in it by myself. There was something else that was also working on my behalf. It wasn't just me. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times when we feel like it's just us, it gets so overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? To oh my God, it's me, me, me. So having that, and whatever kind of practice you went to, I tell you, when I was going through my own healing journey, what would help me every day is literally putting on the full armor of God before I went outside. And I
Wow.
would literally sit on my edge of the bed and literally put on the armor, put on
Yeah.
the headgear and the shield and the boots and even putting the sword in my pocket. Like I really went through the motions because I felt like I was covered by the
Yeah.
spirit.
I
And
hear
so
you.
to me, that is super, super, super important, is to make sure more than ever now, if you weren't praying before, figure out a way to start praying now, because it's going to take that to help you get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that the power of that is what makes it, like, I don't know if you've ever read the Four Agreements, and one of them is don't take things personally, don't take anything personally. And it sounds so simplified when you apply it to what we're talking about right now. But I say it to say a betrayal that I underwent in that abusive relationship was that for months he had been reading my journals and my diaries, and he was kind of using the information as weapons against me. And I kept
Very
thinking,
good.
like, how does he know exactly the thing to do or say to like hurt me the absolute most horrific way that he could hurt me? Like, how's he doing that? And when I found out that that's what was happening, when I think he finally admitted it, that was a betrayal. Like, the
Mm.
trauma of that betrayal had me not having this language. So I'm so glad that I met you. At that time, I did not have this language. It just felt to me like, okay, I'm hurt, but I got to, first of all, pull myself together, retaliate a little bit, because we were both, in our narcissistic,
Yeah.
egoic energy in that relationship. And, just sit with it and be with it if I want to keep this relationship. Somehow I got to digest it and stuff it down and pretend like I'm not feeling what I'm feeling. And
Mhm.
what you're saying about having that connection to spirituality, I think is so important, mainly because if I, I don't believe in regret, but if I could go back, I would tell myself then, first of all, like you said, go through it. Go through the hurt. Let yourself feel what you're feeling around it. Stop stuffing it down like it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Let yourself process all of it and take as much time as you need to do that. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Like, so often we want to confront right away, or let me handle this right away, especially if we're, it's a partner that we live with. But really, it's like, maybe I just need to be quiet for a little while and just be in this process for a minute so that I can get my bearings, make sure I'm fully in touch with whatever my spirituality is, however I identify with it.
Yeah.
And then think about, what can I take from this? What can I learn from this? How can I respond? Like you
Yeah.
said, it's that moment to take a breath that we're never taught that.
Yes. Yes.
you
Yes.
know? Yeah.
Well,
And
you
that,
know, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, and that connection is the thing that will hold you, right? That is the thing. Whether you put it on like an armor, like you described, and I love the visualization, or if you think of it like an actual something that holds you, that
Yeah.
has your back. My thing was always having my back, which is why I'm into yoga, because I'm all about like my back.
Yeah.
And so, that thing you're talking about, that spirituality piece, I think is that, like, that's the thing that will help you get through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It really is. And whatever emotion that you have to go through to have that connection, right? I had a girlfriend who, for her to feel covered, she would put on a cover, right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of engulf herself in something that felt secure.
Yeah.
When life feels so much of a disarray, when life is just lifing,
Right.
it's something that can kind of give you the cover that you need. And so again, it really is the spirituality of it all. So I definitely would encourage people to formulate some type of relationship with whatever you
Higher.
hold in higher regard
Yeah.
for yourself, because that really is going to be what brings you through it. But I think also too, when you're going through that, it's about taking self accountability as
Mm.
well,
Yes. Yes. I
right?
love
So, because a lot of times we will keep ourselves in these situations that we know we're not supposed to be in.
this.
And at a point in my relationship when I was going through, because I, my story is a long one, but in the point where I was going, it was no longer about him dishonoring me. I was
Mm.
dishonoring myself.
Yes. Yes, honey.
Right. And so
My
we
good.
we have to look at that because the signs are there. It's
Yes.
there. These aren't things that just happen out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's betrayal is something that's been led up,
Yeah.
right? Even like, for instance, I was molested as a child,
Okay.
but in that molestation, it started as grooming, right? So
Mm.
just to give an example, so yes, as a child, I couldn't have done really much about it. He's
Yeah.
an adult male,
Yeah.
but I say that to say is there's always a starting point. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. Right. It's an
So we
evolution.
have to, yeah, and especially as grown women, yes, some things we cannot go back and change, but where we are now, we do not have to accept less, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for us to know who we are, know our value, know our worth, know all of those things about ourselves, so that we don't have to put up with this. We don't have to continue to accept somebody who is abusing us, who
Absolutely.
the struggle of. We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Again, even like I said, we can even pin it to our jobs, right? We
Mm.
don't have to stay in these positions that no longer are making us unhappy or that
Yeah.
are betraying us in some type of way.
Yeah.
Find a way, make a plan, right? Because a lot of times we can't just leave, but you can make a plan for yourself and exit the situation quietly. And
Yeah.
so I did want to say too, I think a lot of times as women, we don't understand that we do have power in our silence.
Mm.
Um,
Yes.
so I'm a very vocal woman. I speak for a living. I do all these things, and I give a voice to the voiceless. But I
Mm.
think also we have to understand that we can do so much more in silence,
Yeah.
right? In the correct way. Not that we're withholding what we have to say, but everybody doesn't need to know our business. Everybody doesn't need to know the moves that we're making. Like, move in silence
Yeah.
and do what you need to do to get the healing that you need. And then you can kind of start to execute the plan.
Yeah. That goes back to what you're saying too about being responsive or reactionary,
Yes.
because that silence is creating responsive,
Yes.
right? As opposed to reactionary.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And you're
Yes.
right. The silence is so powerful because the way that I ended that relationship was by going not the silent treatment, because I still was interactive, but just letting go of all the things that I'd been resisting, fighting, trying to force
Yeah.
to happen, and just letting the words go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he didn't know what to do. So he packed and left.
See, but that's taking the power back
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
yourself, right? Is
Yeah.
not allowing that with somebody else to say that to leave that imprint on you anymore because you know who you are. You've
Yeah.
done the work, right? Like you can't tell me who I am. God is the author here, not you.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm rewriting this script. I'm rewriting the script from childhood. Right. I'm gonna reparent myself. I'm
Yes.
going to, you know, re you know, find a way to have that unconditional self-love
Yes.
that
Absolutely.
we speak about so often, right? So it doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what he says, doesn't matter what anybody says, you know who you are.
Yeah.
To your core. And to me, that's what also helped me get through it. What he said no longer had an effect.
Yeah.
Like you're speaking from who you are. That's
Yeah.
not who I am. I know who I am, and I'm going to stand on who I am as an individual. So I think that we have to make sure that we stop giving people the power to take over our emotions. I
Yes.
think that that's such a big thing, and that comes with learning emotional intelligence, right? A
Yes.
lot of people don't know what it is to have emotional intelligence, or EQ, as they is the another term for it. But it is being able to manage your emotions instead of just having an outburst or just whatever. And it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean that you don't express your emotions. You can, but there's a way to do it where you're going to get a result from it, right?
Yeah.
You're not just going off the hinge. We actually want something to come out of this that's productive,
Yeah.
and that we can find our way out of it and find our way to healing in a better life that we all deserve, for sure.
Yeah. And I love that you use that phrase, self-parenting.
Yes.
We're like taking care of our own little girl within, because when we
Oh,
do that, the things that people say and do, they just don't have the same amount of power.
they don't. Yeah.
Yeah. The moment I started taking care of myself, like he couldn't penetrate it anymore. Like he just couldn't, and I think too that when people are still in there, they call it the pain body, because that's what even the
Mhm.
most abusive narcissist is in,
Yeah.
right? When there is no interaction and there's nothing to fuel it and there's no space for it anymore, they have no choice but to separate themselves. Right? And I
Because we're
think
taking that supply away from them.
they're taking the supply away, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a violent fight.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
As a matter of fact, they love the violent fight, right?
Oh,
They're there for the
absolutely.
violent fight.
That's what they want. They want the
Right?
reaction, right? They want you to be all out of sorts. They want to see you in pain. They want to see you hurt.
Yeah.
When you no longer give them that type of response and that type of act, they don't know what to do with themselves when you
Yeah.
take that power back. But that's why so many people have to go no contact.
Yeah.
because, people know how to love bomb you, right? They know how to reel you back in. But it's like your no has to be your no,
Yeah. And
right?
your no is that time for the healing. Your
And
no is
your
that
no,
time for you to be getting in relationship with yourself, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and two, I'm also a firm believer is how can you say that you love somebody if you don't have self-love? Because a lot of us are out here just codependent,
Right.
right? We're just, like you said, in relationships for the sake of finding external love.
Right. Yeah.
But to me, a relationship should be, it's an internal love. You love you, I love you. You know what I mean? You love yourself.
I love
I
me.
know how to make myself happy. You know how to make yourself happy. And then together we can come and be of service to each other because we're whole individuals now,
Yeah,
right? I'm not looking for something from you that I haven't already given myself.
absolutely. I always say the filling up to overflow, right?
Yes, yes. And I have a saying that is, if you cannot love me at the level that I love myself, then I don't want it.
Right? 100%. I love that.
I don't want it. And then the other one that I'm coined is never give anyone a seat high enough to look down on you.
Mm.
Right? So that is, again, I don't care if it's your spouse, I don't care who it is. You never put somebody in a position of authority over
Over.
you,
Yeah.
because the only authority is my most high.
Right?
Yeah.
Which I think you need to come back on because we need to do a whole nother podcast about authority and the patriarchy and leadership and all of that stuff.
Ooh,
Right?
I love those discussions. I love those.
Right? That means you need to come back. I so
Yeah.
agree with that. Like I think we've been sold a bill of goods from not spirituality, religion about,
Mhm.
the hierarchy of
Mhm.
relationships and, how that really naturally needs to work.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, you need to come back because I know it's a
for
whole
sure.
other conversation.
There's so,
And
I mean, the rabbit hole goes deep though.
yes, it really
It really
does.
does.
It really
I
does.
would love to come back on the show and invite you on our show as well, on Bringing
Yeah.
On Candid Combos, to have those discussions, because we have great discussions about that too. But, just again, specifically for about betrayal, it really is, again, finding your way through it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, we are locked in spiritual warfare. And so if you've removed yourself from it, but you still find that you're still going through the same motions. Like I said, you're hyper vigilant. You don't trust anybody. You don't
Yeah.
want to get into another relationship. You don't know how to love. You don't love yourself. I really am a firm believer. It's because it is spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times we're carrying the spirit of fear.
Hmm.
We're carrying the spirit of resentment and the spirit of neglect and abandonment and all of these spirits that have attached themselves to us from other people,
Yeah.
that have projected that onto us. Now we have to find a way to be able to release that. And
Yeah.
again, that is why it's so important to have that spiritual relationship with the Most High, or whoever you know, refer to.
Yeah.
Um, because if you do not cleanse yourself of those type of spirits, then it will be attached to you forever.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I have a mentor who talks about, because I think it's very common for those of us who do tend to love or love too much, be in love with love. We tend to identify ourselves as empaths, and that can sometimes be a gateway into abuse. But I have this
Mhm.
great mentor who she identifies herself as an empath, but she says that it's so important to be able to recognize what is yours and what is someone else's.
Absolutely.
And it's right along the lines of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, when we're in that spiritual path and when we're in that self-understanding, it becomes very clear what belongs to me and what does not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And discern that
Yes. Like, this is not mine.
this is not mine. And I can decide, I can choose whether I want to be compassionate around it or if I just want to separate myself from it, how I need to respond to it. But yeah, I so resonate with what you are saying. And Dina Cole, she says, this conversation is so good and so needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Yeah.
let me tell you that the perpetrators look for empaths, right? They
Yeah.
look for people who are good-natured people, right?
Yes.
They look for people who take on more than they should, who absorb everybody else's feelings. Like, they're specifically looking for you. They know how to pick their victims.
Absolutely.
And so I think as women too, a lot of times we always feel like we need to be friendly and
Sweet.
nice and sweet, and but I'm
Compliant.
like, yeah, I'm like, it's okay sometimes to, have that attitude. Sometimes we teach people how to treat us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so we have to make sure that we are setting our boundaries, setting our standards and the expectations that we have for our life. And especially as grown women, if somebody's trying to come into your life and they can't respect that, then there's no room for them there,
Right.
right? There's no room. If you can't respect how I feel about things, my view, my vision, then we're just not compatible.
Exactly.
We're just not
Exactly. Like,
compatible.
what are we even here for? But you said something earlier about the self-awareness piece, because I think sometimes, and I know for myself, when I was a people pleaser without the identification that that's what was happening,
Mhm.
or a self-proclaimed empath and thinking that I had to be nice no matter what, because that's how I was raised to be as a woman, I didn't realize that what I was doing was controlling in the same way that someone who is violent and dominating
Ooh,
and rude and mean is controlling. It's just I had a much nicer way to manipulate,
right,
right? Like
right,
that bending over
right.
backwards and pretending like I don't have needs because I'm hoping it'll make that person be a certain way is
Hmm.
just manipulative. It's just not as violent. It's just not as scary.
Absolutely. It was so funny because I was having that conversation with a girlfriend of mine today, about, relationships and things of that nature. And I said, it really is selfish of us
Mhm.
to put somebody in a situation that they just don't have the capacity for, right? To
Yeah.
put these expectations on somebody to do something, and it's just not who they are. Let's
Yeah.
just accept that that's not who they are, right?
Yeah.
That's just not them.
Right.
And find somebody who is.
Who is,
Find
right?
somebody that can show up the way that you need them to show up.
Yeah.
And as women, I think sometimes too in relationships, we take on this mother role in our relationships. Like we have to teach this man,
Yeah.
like, and we find ourselves over explaining and keep telling him, well, you need to treat me like this and you need to do this and this. Do you not think for one second that they know what to do? That
Right.
they know how to treat a person? Do you not think
Right.
for one second? Like they go out to their jobs and they're not treating people like this.
Right.
They're
Exactly. And here's
functioning
the
out in the
thing
real
too.
world.
I think that they are, and just like we are, it's like we select, especially when we're not very spiritually conscious, we select how we want to treat who we want to treat, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the same man who is the one who you got to drag along and won't get it together and won't do what you want him to do, there's another woman out there that's for him that he's going to do all the things. Right?
Absolutely.
And
As
you're
soon
going
as
to
he
be out
leaves you,
there, right? What's that?
I said, as soon as he leaves you, he's going to do
Exactly.
everything for the next woman.
Exactly, exactly. And I think, I often tell my clients, it's like you got to be willing to be in the space of, I know that what I seek is seeking me, so I don't have to force it from anybody. I don't have to
That's right.
make someone be that because
That's
mine is out there and he's probably with somebody who he's not treating so great, but as soon as he
right.
were to meet you who's standing in their boundaries and knowing who she is, he knows he can't that you're not going to settle for the okie doke. He's going to
Yeah.
be a completely different man if you're the woman that is willing to love yourself enough to be in your boundaries, in your integrity around who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And
Absolutely.
I think that's true of women too. Like I think often men get a bad rap in that they're the only ones who display bad behavior. But I know for myself, in the people that I've dated, and I've been in my adult life somewhat of a serial monogamist, there were a couple people that like I knew how to respect, I knew how to show up, and a couple people that I knew that, my bad behavior is my bad behavior. Suck it up. You know what I mean?
Well, but it's true. We do. We know. We know who is going to put up with what and
Yes.
who's not. Even take it to children. Children know, oh, I could do this with mom, but I can't do this with dad.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So you know who you can play with, and you
Yeah,
know who's just not going to accept it. And
absolutely.
we need to get to the point where we're just not going to accept it. I'm not going to accept any less than I deserve, and I'm not going to accept any less than I would give.
Yes. Yes. And
You
it's
know,
a beautiful feminine energy to just be in our word about it. Like
yes.
I always tell clients, like, don't fight anybody on it. Don't
Mm-mm,
be in an
mm-mm,
argument about it.
mm-mm.
It's not, you're not trying to make them do anything. It's, this is who I know I am and what I want to align with. And in my
Yeah.
feminine energy, I'm going to go over here and align with it.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't, that's okay.
That's okay. I mean, honestly, like, and I really hope that that the audience is really getting that, right? We're not here to convince anybody. We're
Yeah.
not here to make anybody be something that they're not,
Right.
right? People are aligned with you, or they're not.
Yeah.
Period, right? And so there's going to be somebody out there that has the same values, has the same goal, has, similar wants and stuff. Might be a little bit different because we're individuals,
Mm.
but they're going to respect you. And if
Yes.
they don't, but again, they're even if they don't, they're going to respect that that's who you are. And they're
Yes.
not going to try to change you into something that you're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
Oh my goodness, Keisha, I feel like we could just go on all day.
Yeah.
And that means you're gonna have to come back. And like I said, I'm
I
coming
would love to.
on your show. You
Yeah.
gotta come back to my show. We gotta be podcast family now.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I would love that. I just think that you are so fantastic.
Oh,
And I do not believe in happenstances. I think that things happen for a reason.
yeah.
And so even when we were able to talk before the show, and we just had so many similarities and things in common, and in the great state of, we're in the DMV, Maryland, DC, and
Yeah.
Virginia. And so these connections happen because they're supposed to.
Absolutely. And we're gonna get together for coffee as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what do you want everyone to walk away with? And then I'm going to give you an opportunity to, tell them how to get in touch with you and get a hold of your book and all of that good stuff. What's your sort of
Sure,
final like takeaway that you want everyone?
sure. My personal my takeaway that I would want you all to take away is just learn yourself, love yourself unconditionally, and get the healing that you need. Right, you are
Yes.
worthy. You are worthy. And as women, we have an innate value about ourselves. Right,
Yeah.
and so when you can tap into that innate value and know who you are, you set the tone.
Yeah.
Nobody can set the tone for your life. So I just encourage all of you to take that pain, turn it into your purpose, right? I always say, take the wounds and turn them into wisdom.
Yes.
Okay? Because
Yeah.
you know who you are, you know your life, you know your patterns, and only you can design it from there here on out. Of course, with the most high, but we get to design our life. We don't have to live our life by default. And I
Absolutely.
think that that's a big takeaway that I would want you all to take with you is you get to design it
You get to
for sure.
design it.
You
Yeah.
get to design your life.
100%. And I want to add to that, and you don't have to do it alone,
Oh no, no,
right?
you don't have to do it alone. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
there's people like us out here, and also, like we were talking about earlier, healing comes with community. Whatever we're
yes,
out here going through, there is somebody else who's going through it too, right? Or
absolutely.
been through it and can
Yeah,
help you through it, help support you through it. And I think as Black women, sometimes we think that we have to do it all by ourselves and know how to do it all by ourselves when we really don't. We
no,
really,
there is community.
yes.
Like you said, I'm a reset life coach. You're a love coach. Women are doing the damn thing right now, right?
Yeah.
We are creating community. We are creating sisterhoods, and networking, and just knowing. So find your tribe. Find other women that you can connect with and build community with, because that's what's going to help you get through, as well as all of the other stuff that we said. But absolutely, it is relationships. We cannot do it alone, and we don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely.
Right? We are here to assist always.
Yay. All right. So
Yay.
speaking of which, tell everybody, hit the reset, the crux of your work and who you work with.
Sure, sure. So first of all, I'm going to plug my book.
Yes.
This is me surviving betrayal trauma, how to hit the reset and take your power back. I tell people this is an easy read, but it's an impactful read,
Mm,
because so many of us are going through healing from betrayal. We've all had similar experiences. So this, people say that this is like, I'm like the big sister, right? I'm like the one that holds your hand through it all.
Yeah.
And so please go, it's on Amazon.com. It's also on my website, hittheresetllc.com. And as I said, I am a life coach. I'm a life coach. I'm a reset coach, but it is spiritually based. It's not religious based. It is spiritually based.
Yeah.
And so we want to tap into that healing. We want to tap into personal development. We want to tap into emotional well-being. So all of those things to help to get you to the other side of this, because there is life on the other side of betrayal.
Oh,
It
100%.
really is. So yes, you can find me at hittheresetllc.com. I'm on Instagram, hittheresetllc.com. I'm on TikTok, hittheresetllc.com. Facebook, you can find me. It's Kisha Benjamin at Facebook. But I'm here, and I would love to, if you are experiencing and going through it and you want somebody to talk to about it, if you know anybody as well that is experiencing betrayal in some form and they need somebody to talk to, please feel free to reach out.
Oh, wow. 100%. Yes. And I will make sure to put all of your links to anybody who's watching. Kisha's links will not only be in the description of wherever you're watching, I'm also going to put them across the screen. So they'll be on
Thank you.
the screen. Yeah. So make sure
Thank you.
to look out for them and take a note of them. And
Thank
is there
you.
anything else that you want the people to know before we close out? Oh, I wanted to just acknowledge Don Holder because he said, "Greetings, ladies." Hi, Don. Thank you for
Hi,
joining.
Dawn. Hi there. Hi there. No, you know what? Just again, that you have the power, right? To me, and I say this too, you can reset your life as many times as you need to.
Yes.
Right? This isn't a one-stop, this isn't like a one-shot deal, right? This is life. Life is lifing every single day. So don't ever feel like you're stuck. Don't ever feel like you don't have any options for your life. You do, right? And reset it, reclaim it, whatever it is that you need to do to get to where you need to go. Do that. Do that.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. All right, everybody. So thank you so much, Kisha, for being here with us today and, joining my podcast family as I am joining your podcast family.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that we met each other. And
yes.
So everybody else, thank you guys for being here. Everyone, especially those of you who stayed for the whole show. D. Nicole, you have ridden with us, sister. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Watching, right? If you were watching and things came up for you, or you thought about making a comment, or you wanted to respond in some way, you always can just in the comments. We will look for what you have to say and, respond to it. And, just thank you. I'm grateful that you were here. I'm grateful that we got to sit down and have this really great moment. And as always, don't forget to stop by my website, CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com, for your free copy of my ebook, 7 Days to Freedom from Single Girl Shame. And it's just, it's like a week-long interactive journal to help you let go of any sort of shame stories you're telling yourself around being single, as if there's anything wrong with it. Sometimes we need a season of single. Ain't nothing wrong with it. And
absolutely.
Right? That freedom from shame is the avenue into having the love life that you want. So
absolutely,
definitely check that out. And that's it, my sweet love.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Candice. I have loved it. And again, I hope that people found value in the things that we discussed and that they, kind of take that in and sit on it for a minute, right? Sit with it for a minute and know that, there's goodness out here. There's greatness out here. And you can really live up to the potential that God has in store for you.
100%. 100%.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See everybody.
Right?
Bye now.
Keep being unapologetically lovable, and by all means, give yourself grace. I love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye.
See ya. Bye now.
All right, everybody, we are live. It's Friday afternoon. You know what that means. It is lunchtime. It's time for us to get together in a really deep, wonderful conversation. And as always, I have a compelling question for you.